And religious leaders in Bahrain will be very telling in the next few hours.
Of course, everybody will be listening very carefully to those Friday sermons, none more so than the political and royal leadership of Bahrain. But also, how surprised were you at how quickly the GCC convened on Thursday to discuss the problems that Bahrain had faced in 24 hours?
Well, I'm not surprised at all, because Bahrain needs all the help and the support it needs. And obviously, there is a possibility that these protests may escalate to other countries in the region, especially Kuwait, with its minority Shiite. And the sooner the situation is overcome, the better, not only for Bahrain, but also for the GCC countries.
In terms of the United States, they have the centre for them is Bahrain in terms of their naval fleet, and they've come out with, to a certain extent, mixed messages. We've just heard in the last hour from various contributors to AlJazeera as to how difficult it is for them to deal with this, considering Bahrain is an ally.
It is very difficult for the US for two reasons. The first one is the rapid changes that have been taking place not only in Bahrain but also throughout the Arab world. And secondly, in the eyes of so many people in the Arab world, the United States is not necessarily a credible actor in terms of democracy and human rights, because it has always been supporting dictatorships throughout the world.
Well, for the moment, Youssef Bouandal, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be coming back to you throughout the day.
Thank you.
Now, Egypt's pro-democracy leaders are planning a victory march in Cairo on Friday to celebrate the removal of President Hosni Mubarak last week. And in the wake of Egypt's revolution, 3 former cabinet ministers and 1 top businessman have been arrested. They're the ex-Interior Minister Habib El Adali, who stands accused of corruption, steel tycoon Ahmed Ez, who was the organisational secretary of Mubarak's NDP party, and he also faces charges, along with the former Housing Minister Ahmed Maghrabi and ex-Tourism Minister Zuhair Garana. Now, officials say they'll stay in prison for 15 days while being investigated. Over to China now, where a Beijing court has upheld the conviction, an 8-year sentence given to a Chinese-born American geologist for stealing state secrets. Xu Feng was charged in July for obtaining information on the Chinese oil industry. His appeal lawyer had argued that the information acquired about the oil industry was widely available. The US ambassador to China was in court and urged China to release Xu.
This has been a long, difficult, and painful ordeal for Xue Feng, but not only for Xue, also for his wife Nan and his 2 kids, Rachel and Alex. We have remained in regular contact with his family. We ask the Chinese government to consider an immediate humanitarian release of Xue Feng, thereby allowing him to get back to his family and his way of life. He is a U.S. citizen, and we take this case very, very seriously.
Melissa Chan has more details from Beijing.
The Americans have been watching this case very closely, with the U.S. Ambassador Huntsman visiting Xue in prison every single month when he can, and President Obama directly raising the case with President Hu Jintao in the past. There's evidence that Xue was tortured in prison. He was able to show American representatives cigarette burns on his skin, and the Chinese have violated the U.S.-China consular agreement in their initial detention of Xue and their failure to inform the U.S. Embassy. All of this is very concerning for the business community here, who is watching this and wondering if the rule of law would apply to them. And just to give you an idea of what Xue was actually working on and doing, Xue was doing research for IHS Consultancy. It's an international consultancy, quite above board, and in fact, guests from IHS have appeared on AlJazeera to talk about a variety of topics. So quite above board, like I said, which raises a lot of questions for the foreign business community about whether they are protected and whether the rule of law would actually apply in their specific cases.
Haiti struggles to cope with the cholera outbreak that's killed more than 4,500 people. Among those trying to deal with the disease is this group of Cuban doctors. We'll have their story. And relief, finally, for a Chinese man who couldn't shake years of stabbing headaches. More to come.
As the rain pours over Johannesburg, we'll keep your spirits up.
Hello again. For the western parts of the states, it's pretty wet at the moment and there's more rain still to come. If we take a look at the satellite picture, we can see the cloud here all marching its way in. Further east, it's generally a lot more settled at the moment, and here it's also been rather warm. Not quite as warm for some of us, though, as we head through Friday. Chicago only getting to 9 degrees this time. That hot weather confined to this southeast corner. Look at Washington, D.C., right up at 20 degrees. Meanwhile, further west, it's still going to be unsettled here. In fact, for some of us in California, it is going to be very, very wet over the next couple of days, and there could even be some landslides. A bit further south, and here we've got some showers that are gradually just lapping their way onto the coast here, all the way down towards Panama. Could be a few showers here. And even for Colombia, it looks like here the wet weather will be banding together at times to give some more persistent rain. Up towards Europe and in the east, it's still bitterly cold. Look at the top temperature there in Moscow, -24 as a maximum. Elsewhere, it's generally far more unsettled, but it is milder. There's a brighter slot here in the western parts of Europe, but only ahead of the next belt of rain. One intense storm is working its way across the Mediterranean. Look at this over Italy. Torrential downpours there, and it is stretching across the other side of the Mediterranean too. Tunis there, 14 degrees, but it will be very wet and windy.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
All the news, all the time. AlJazeera.net/English.
To be part of the success of one of the world's most attractive countries for FDI, please push the button. For more power to your global business, invest in Turkey.
Welcome back. Our main stories here on Al Jazeera. At least 24 people have been killed in Libya in a crackdown on protests there. Demonstrators in Tobruk burned down a monument to the Green Book that contains leader Muammar Gaddafi's political views. Funerals are underway in Bahrain for protesters killed in Thursday's violent crackdown in Manama. The city remains under police lockdown. Egyptian authorities have arrested 3 former government ministers and a businessman who are under investigation for corruption. Well, over to Yemen now, where pro- and anti-government protesters clashed in the capital on Thursday. Several thousand people defied government appeals for calm and marched through Sana'a on Thursday. They want more political freedom and for President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step down. The protesters have vowed to continue with their actions until their demands are met. Meanwhile, the country's influential ulama, or religious leaders, have called for the formation of a unity government. The polls have opened in Uganda for the presidential and parliamentary elections. Opposition figure Kizza Besigye has warned of protests if voting results are seen as unfair. But President Yoweri Museveni is confident of a landslide win to extend his 25 years in office.
Why are you so agitated that there must be change? The economy is growing very well.